Here is the claim that decides everything. Deadliness is not only body count, it is encounter rate multiplied by inevitability once you are targeted. We will rank 8 icons by how often you could reasonably meet them on a Halloween night, and how hard it is to walk away once the music starts. Jason Voorhees lands at the bottom of this list not because he lacks power, but because you usually have to go to him. The clearest anchor is the Crystal Lake loop across the Friday films, where geography is a filter and his victims self-select by stepping onto his property. The stakes are simple. If you remove the camp and the trespass, most suburbs never meet him. Jason, the craft is relentless locomotion and an absurd tolerance for damage. He absorbs punishment, breaks doors, and keeps the frame honest by appearing where he should not. The pushback says that makes him the apex killer. The counter is that his patrol zone is narrow and his motive is local. Compared to city hunters and rule-bound judges, Jason is a regional event. Jason, impact for viewers. Respect signs, lakes, and family lore. If you never choose the woods, your odds against Jason drop to almost zero simply because the encounter never happens. Button, strong when summoned, avoidable when you decline the invitation. Freddy Krueger sits just above because while he can reach anyone, he still needs sleep and fear to open the door. The anchor is A Nightmare on Elm Street, where the glove only swings when the victim cannot stay awake. The stakes are exhaustion math. Even the smartest teen runs out of hours. Freddy, the craft is dream manipulation and creative murder that folds your own thoughts against you. The strongest counter-reading says caffeine, teamwork, and lucid habits can stall him long enough to pull him into waking rules. That is true on the page and rare in life. Versus Field. He is broader than Jason because he is not bound by a lake, but he is narrower than the judges who punish ritual violations on sight. Freddy, impact. Freddy turns avoidance into a schedule that breaks people cleanly. The practical way out is community sleep watches and alarm chains. Button. The dream hunter is lethal on a timer, survivable with a village, and that keeps him 7th. Chucky. Chucky rises because his encounter rate is low, but his persistence is savage once he picks a mark. The anchor is Child's Play, where a good guy doll becomes a portable assassin that fits in backpacks and vents. The stakes are households with kids and thrift stores with old boxes that should have stayed closed. Chucky. The craft is ambush, disguise, and small body physics that ignore your eyesight. The pushback says you can punt a doll. The rebuttal is that he stabs from waist height while you laugh, and your laughter costs time. Near neighbors like mask killers lose stealth in daylight. Chucky can sit in a toy aisle all afternoon. Chucky, impact. Every home with a toy chest is a battlefield full of cover. Your counters are dogs, locked cabinets, and never ignoring tiny footprints on a counter. Button. Not the deadliest across a city, but vicious inside your house once you let him in. Leatherface. Leatherface sits in the middle because the meat rate is gated by a rural detour, but the kill certainty spikes the second you cross the threshold. The anchor is the Texas Chain Saw Massacre, where a wrong knock becomes a sprint through bones and plastic sheets. The stakes are directional. A single road, a single door, and a single hammer decide lives. Leatherface. The craft is shock, family logistics, and improvised terrain. He does not stalk through parties. He waits behind a sliding door and sprints 8 feet with a tool he knows like a limb. The pushback says he can be outrun in the open. True, if you make it back to the open before collapse. Versus Field. He is Jason, with a smaller map and more acceleration. Leatherface. Impact. The farmhouse is a machine that turns curiosity into noise, and noise into panic, and panic into meat. Button. Deadlier than the lake stalker once you trespass, but still bound by a place. Pinhead. Pinhead breaks the fence because he is not a slasher until you solve his invitation. The anchor is Hellraiser, where the lament configuration functions as a consent form disguised as a toy. The stakes are paradoxical. The encounter rate is low for cautious people and catastrophic for the curious. Pinhead. The craft is rules and geometry. Open the box and chains arrive with surgical indifference. The pushback says that makes him the deadliest. The counter is that almost all victims open the door themselves for thrill or greed, and a viewer can choose not to, versus Field. He dwarfs the mortals once summoned, but loses points for being opt-in. Pinhead. Impact. This is the cleanest case of how not to die. Do not touch the puzzle you did not earn, do not trade pain for novelty, and you will never hear the bell. Button. God tier power, human tier encounter rate, that holds him at 5th. Art the Clown. Art climbs because his map is flexible, and his patience is cruel. The Anchor is Terrifier, where he stalks across city blocks and hunts through bathrooms, halls, and basements. The stakes are higher than a farmhouse because he roams nightlife and late buses. Art the Clown. The craft is silence, pantomime, and escalation. He loves the pause before the cut, and he uses props to turn curiosity into injuries. The pushback says he is still a man in makeup. The counter is outcomes. Even if he is mortal, his planning and appetite erase the advantage most victims think they have. Versus Field. He combines the mobility of Ghostface with the stubbornness of Michael without the need for a phone call. Art the Clown. Impact. He thrives where people keep secrets at 2 a.m. Your counters are groups, lit streets, and saying no to games. Button. Citywide reach and a taste for spectacle place him in the top 4. Candyman. Candyman enters the podium because he travels by story and anchor rumor, not by bus route. The anchor is the mirror ritual. Speak the name with belief, and he arrives with a hook and a swarm. The stakes are cultural. Ghettos, legends, and grief give him fuel that outlasts one night. Candyman. The craft is myth enforcement. He punishes investigators who strip fear from his tale and anyone who proves his absence too publicly. Pushback says you can just refuse the chant. True. For the audience who never treats folklore like a dare. Versus Field. He beats Freddy on reach because waking or sleeping does not matter, and he beats Leatherface on map because mirrors outnumber barns. Candyman. Impact. The killer you invite with mockery is the killer who owns classrooms and bathrooms. The counter is respecting names, honoring boundaries, and never performing fear as a joke. Button. 3rd place because the ritual is elective, but the penalty for pride is terminal. Sam. Sam from Trick or Treat is 2nd because he is not a murderer chasing screams. He is a judge with a code that surfaces every Halloween without fail. The Anchor is the anthology's thread, where Sam appears at each violation of the holiday. Broken pumpkins, poisoned candy, bad faith pranks, and discard of tradition. The stakes are universal. If your town celebrates October, he visits. Sam. The craft is enforcement with childlike calm. A lollipop becomes a blade, a candy bar hides a razor, and a small silhouette turns into absolute leverage because the season itself is the weapon. Pushback says you can simply obey the rules. That is exactly why he is so high. The encounter rate is universal, the rules are tight, and the consequence is direct. Versus Field. He defeats Jason on map, Freddy on timing, and Art on motive because he does not need motive. He has policy. Sam. Do not glamorize harm. Focus on craft, logic, and psychology. Ethics matters here because Sam rewards caretaking and punishes cruelty, and that is the closest thing to safety you will get from a mask. Michael Myers. Michael takes the top slot because he brings the perfect blend of reach, silence, and inevitability to a suburban Halloween. The Anchor is Halloween 1978, and its echoes, daylight stalking, vanishing from frames, and arriving inside locked houses as if the walls learned to breathe. The stakes are ordinary families on ordinary streets. He does not need rituals, puzzles, or lakes. He needs a block that pretends it is safe. Michael Myers. The craft is patience as a weapon. He studies schedules, kills lights, and moves with a stride that turns any house into fewer rooms than you remember. The pushback says he is human and can be fought. The counter is that his myth bends probability without asking to be supernatural. Guns jam, help arrives late, and the hallway is longer than it was an hour ago. Versus Field. He beats Candyman and Pinhead on opt-out because you cannot choose not to have a street, and he beats Freddy because he hunts while you are awake. Michael Myers. Impact. The shape is the form of danger that looks most like your own neighborhood. He is deadliest on Halloween because masks are normal and porch lights lie. The viewer-facing verdict is that structure beats panic. Lock early, keep sightlines, and do not treat a quiet sidewalk as a promise. Final button. On a night built for killers, the one who needs nothing but a shadow wins. A high schooler on a late walk tells herself the rustle was wind and ignores the shadow that does not sway with the trees. A tenant 3 floors up lights a single candle behind glass and sets their pumpkin straight because rules matter to someone they cannot see. A student at a party refuses a mirror dare and watches friends laugh without noticing the hook in the story. Across town, a bus passes a billboard with a mask that looks like every other costume in every other store. In a kitchen, a cheap kitchen knife glints in a drawer that is never locked. A child opens a candy bar and frowns at the wrapper because something feels off, and that small frown becomes the decision that keeps the night quiet. We close with why this ranking works for survival. Your risk is a product of exposure and surrender. Exposure is where you are and what night it is. Surrender is the act that hands the killer permission. The chant, the puzzle, the call, the trespass, or the casual disrespect for a ritual that keeps communities kind. On Halloween, exposure spikes everywhere, so permission is all you can control. So who is deadliest? The final read is simple. In the loud middle of town on the last night of October, Michael wins because he needs so little to begin and gives you so few chances to end it. If you pick rituals and mirrors, Candyman will take the stage. If you chase novelties, Pinhead will answer. If you insist on breaking the harvest, Sam will finish the lesson. Plan your night as if these are audits you can pass. Keep the porch light honest. Keep your group in sight. Keep your mouth from saying the name that was not meant to be said. And if a blank mask stands under a street lamp without moving, change streets before the pumpkin hour says yes.